All right, let's get into it. We're going to talk about a piece of history that a lot of people just skip right over, but it's this incredible bridge, right? It connects two huge parts of a much, much bigger story.
So, you ever open up a Bible and see that one blank page between the Old and New Testaments? It kind of looks like nothing happened for 400 years. But let me tell you, this period was anything but silent. It was a total pressure cooker, empires clashing, new ideas exploding, and rebellions flaring up. This is the period that literally forged the world of the New Testament. And honestly, if you don't get what happened here, the world that Jesus walked into, it just doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so where does this all kick off? Right at the very end of the Old Testament. You've got the Jewish people living under Persian rule, and something really unusual is happening. For the first time in, well, centuries, there are no new prophets. It's like the direct line to God just went quiet. And this wasn't just some, literary pause. People felt this silence. It was a huge deal. One ancient writer actually called it a great affliction for Israel, worse than any since the day when prophets ceased to appear among them. Can you imagine? It created this deep, deep sense of longing, of uncertainty, a huge spiritual vacuum just waiting for something or someone to fill it. So what's going to fill that vacuum? Well, the first big shift doesn't come from a prophet. Nope, it comes from a conqueror. A guy who is about to march onto the world stage and change absolutely everything. Now, to really get what's about to happen, you've got to see the pattern here. This wasn't a peaceful time. For centuries, the Jewish people were basically a political football, passed from one empire to the next. First, it was the Babylonians, right? Then the Persians took over. This constant state of being ruled by someone else, it sets the stage perfectly for the next big player to arrive on the scene, the Greeks. And then, bam, 331 BC. Alexander the Great just sweeps across the known world. But here's the thing you have to understand. This was so much more than just a military conquest. Alexander brought an entire culture with him. The Greek language, Greek philosophy, Greek art, the whole Greek way of life. This cultural tidal wave had a name, Hellenism. Think of Hellenism as like the ancient world's version of globalization. It was cool, it was sophisticated, it was modern, and super appealing. And it put the Jewish people in a really tough spot, forcing them to ask a fundamental question. Do we adapt? Do we jump into this new, shiny global culture? Or do we resist to protect everything that makes us who we are? And that question, it split Jewish society right down the middle. I mean, a massive divide. On one side, you had the Hasidim, the pious ones, who were like, no way. This is a threat to our faith, to our covenant. They resisted with everything they had. And on the other side, you had the Hellenists, a lot of them from the upper class, who saw this as an opportunity. They embraced Greek customs to get ahead in the new world. And get this, these two opposing groups, they're basically the ancestors of the Pharisees and the Sadducees we read about later. So you've got this huge cultural clash brewing, and it is not going to stay a polite debate for long. Oh no, things are about to escalate. Big time. We're talking about a full-blown crisis, a fight for the very survival of Judaism itself. The breaking point comes with this one Greek king, a guy named Antiochus IV. And he is not messing around. He decides he's going to force Hellenism on the Jewish people. He makes their religion illegal. He bans things like Sabbath observance, reading the Torah. I mean, he brutally tries to just erase their entire identity. And then he does the unthinkable, the ultimate act of desecration. He sacrifices a pig on the holy altar in the Jerusalem temple. Well, you can probably guess what happened next. That act of pure tyranny, it triggered a rebellion, a heroic, against all odds fight for freedom. It all started with this one priest, Mattathias, who just refused to comply. His son, Judas, who got the awesome nickname Maccabeus, which means the hammer, led this incredible guerrilla war against the massive Greek army. And they won. They actually won. They took back Jerusalem, and in 164 BC, they purified the temple. And that miraculous victory, that's what's still celebrated today as Hanukkah. So this revolt was a huge success, right? It led to a brief, glorious period of Jewish independence. But winning the war was one thing. Governing themselves afterward, well, that created a whole new and very complicated political and religious landscape.
The family of the Maccabees, they became the new rulers, the Hasmonean dynasty, and they ruled for about a century. But sadly, that hard-won independence, it didn't last. They started fighting amongst themselves, power struggles and internal conflicts, And that weakness was like an open invitation for the next superpower that was just waiting in the wings. And that was Rome. By 63 BC, it was all over. Jewish independence was gone.
Okay, so this is the absolute key takeaway. All of this chaos, this back and forth, it's what created the distinct groups you see all over the New Testament. You've got the Pharisees, who were super influential with everyday people. The Sadducees, the rich aristocrats who ran the temple. The Essenes, who kind of checked out of society to focus on purity. And the Zealots, the revolutionaries who wanted to fight Rome. These are the exact same parties we see arguing with Jesus. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere, they were forged in the fire of these 400 years.
All right, and all of this brings us to the final scene. It's like all these different threads, the Greek cultural influence, the memory of that Jewish rebellion, the crushing power of Rome, and all the infighting. They're all about to converge.
Because this is the world Jesus was born into. Just picture it. You're living under the thumb of an oppressive Roman military. You're being squeezed dry by heavy taxes. Your culture is still a mix of Jewish tradition and Greek ideas. Your own society is split into all these warring factions. And in the middle of all that chaos, the hope for a Messiah, a promised savior, it's not just a hope. It's at a fever pitch. People are desperate.
And think about what they've been through. After centuries of being kicked around by one empire after another, the intense pressure from Rome shaped exactly what kind of savior they were looking for. They weren't looking for a quiet spiritual teacher. They were expecting a warrior king, a new hammer, someone who would raise an army, kick the Romans out, and restore the kingdom of Israel by force. And that just sets the stage perfectly, doesn't it? It leaves us with this final, really powerful thought. Here you have a nation, oppressed from the outside and divided on the inside, desperate for a savior. But the real question is, what kind of savior were they actually expecting? They wanted a hero to solve their Roman problem, their money problems, their political problems, and the massive gap between the savior they wanted and the one who showed up, well, that might just be the most important story of all.